Hello again, and welcome to the penultimate part of Lazarus Paints Morpheus. First of all, quick apology, I had to go away and earn some money to pay my extortionate bills, and I was also working on a few other painting projects that you'll see very shortly. So in this video you'll see 70 to 100 hours worth of work, so stick with me, enjoy all the details. So hopefully you won't skip forward. If you do, maybe just watch the video in 2 or 3 sittings instead of skipping forward, because you may miss some important details about why I painted this painting and how I'm painting this painting. I'm also at the same time working on a 60-second short of the whole process from the beginning to the end. That will come after the final video, which is the next video, so I'll be releasing that video very soon. But if you really do want to enjoy all the detail of this painting, I hope you'll stick with me through the whole of this video. It's a bit of a long one because I wanted to bring a longer video to you because of the long wait. And this video should take us to around, I would say, 70 to 80% finished. So I'm going to be finishing the face, the glasses, the hands, the biscuits, the tie, and touching up other areas of the painting as we go along. So do stick with me for all that to come. So beginning to start on the final modelling of the hands. The important thing now is to really capture the foreshortening in these hands and to make sure the light is falling on them correctly in line with the face. On the positioning of the hands, I've gone for the position that Morpheus was in when he first takes the pills out of the box before he reaches forward to Morpheus and actually gives him the choice. So this is a kind of pulled in version of the hands rather than a reaching out version of the hands. In between each session of painting, I may make little notes on the painting, as you can see here, just a little arrow to tell me that the hand isn't quite right in that position, I need to change it. I'm running the film about 90 to 100 times real speed now, which is probably just about as fast as I can go with the editing. So you're seeing around an hour's work every 30 seconds. So moving back onto the tie, you'll remember that I was going from dark to light rather than light to dark, and I think that's working now. So I'm working with just putting in the green highlights, which gives the overall impression of a green tie rather than a black tie. An interesting thing about time-lapse with acrylics rather than oils, you can literally see how quickly this paint dries. So you can, you have the luxury of working over it very quickly, or it could be a disadvantage to you, either way. As I may have mentioned in the first video, I'm working with very cheap acrylics here. I bought very cheap budget acrylics, so I've not gone for very expensive, brands like Winsor & Newton or, the American Liquitex paints that every American seems to use because they're either sponsored by them or they do think they're the best. So it just demonstrates how much you can achieve with very cheap brushes, very cheap paints, and a budget canvas really that's just been double coated in gesso. I'm by no means saying that better quality paints will give you a better quality result. Of course they will. They're better refined. They use better pigments. All I'm saying is, and I'm not here to teach, but if you're starting out painting for the first time and you're watching this video, either now or in the future, you do not need very expensive paints or materials. Yes, it may make your life a little harder, but you're in the process of learning. So save yourself some money, buy some cheap materials, and just get painting. And this particular painting's a personal piece. As you know, it's for me. It's not for a client. It's not going to be sold for money. So, I can afford to use the experiment with the cheaper materials, cheaper paints, and just see what I'm capable of with these cheaper materials, purely to see where I was with my skill level. Having said all of that, I have not bought cheap paints just because that's all I could afford. When I bought these paints a few years ago, I bought them en masse. I could have afforded easily the best paints on the market. I could have afforded to buy all Winsor & Newton. I could have afforded to buy as much Liquitex as I wanted to. I just chose not to because I wanted to experiment with cheaper products first. I'm also not using any flow, retarding, gloss, glazing or matte mediums with the paints right now as additives. I may add a gloss medium to the paint to do the reflection in the glasses. That may help, just to give the glasses a more realistic effect with the reflection. In fact, while I was editing this video on my computer, I went on Amazon. I bought this Winsor & Newton gloss medium to use on the glasses to get more of a gloss for the reflection. But it wasn't cheap. It's like, you know, £12 at the moment for just 200 mils, which is around $15, $17, something like that. So let's hope it's worth it. One very important thing I've learned from doing this test painting for myself is scale. I think that I've surprised myself with how long it takes to paint a detailed painting at this type of scale. So I think what I've decided is scale down my work in the future, at least for the time being, at least for the exhibition that I've got coming up. So I'm going to scale everything down to half size, maybe about 2 foot by 1.5 foot, something like this. And that will mean I'll be able to get more paintings done per year, just not at the cost of any detail. So I'll still have the details in the painting that I have at the larger scale. So painting at a smaller scale really fixes things for me, even though I'll be painting at the same level of detail. It means more paintings a year, like I've said, and it means that I will be able to come up to speed with my technique much faster. And that will be put to the test when I start my next portrait, which is going to be Terry Tasker for the Southport People exhibition. Just continuing to correct the flesh tones in the hands. Now I have the face almost finished. I can start to match the hands to the face more accurately. I can't wait at this point just to get onto the Jammy Dodgers biscuits and see what they look like. Just a quick look over my colour palette. Well, you'll see I'm using black and white to mix in and blend with other colours. I really don't care what the purists say. This is what I've always done. It's always worked for me. There is a school of thought where you can mix many colours together to create blacks, which is absolutely true. I was trained that way, but I do believe in using black and white for highlights and shade. It just works. So I'll just do a little bit more modelling on the hands first, just to lighten them up, give them a bit more balance, and then I'm going to start working on the reflection in the glasses. If I work the hands too much, I'll overwork them, so I want to move on to another part of the painting at this stage. So the trick here is to make sure both the reflections are identical. Or at least I thought that was the trick. I just wasn't paying attention to my reference material too closely. Observation in art, especially realistic art, is 2/3 of the task, really. If you don't observe correctly, you won't interpret correctly, and I was just painting blind here. A classic mistake. So let's correct that mistake and look at the reference material more accurately. As you can see, Neo is only reaching out with his left hand, so only the left hand side shows in the reflection. And he's in a slightly different place on the right hand lens. So many details going on in these glasses, like two miniature paintings all by themselves, and you've really got to concentrate on keeping them accurate. This really slows down the process. I'm beginning to mix in some of the gloss medium now that I bought earlier. You can't see it really in this film, but it's really working, and I'm really pleased with it. You'll see it as we move forward. I try and get a side angle view, but it really is adding a gloss to the paint, which is going to help in a big way towards making these glasses look reflective. As you can see, I have the biscuit on the palette and I'm matching the actual colour to the biscuit. So let's start to add the biscuits into the reflection using the gloss medium as well. However, everything in the glasses reflection needs to be a little darker, so I need to keep a check of my colours and make sure they're not exactly the same as the biscuit below. You may have noticed that I'm exaggerating the size of Neo's reflection in the glasses a little bit. This is just a bit of artistic license, because looking at a canvas painting is a lot different in this composition than looking at the film. In the film they have a very close-up, like I said, a close-up of Neo in the glasses. I can't do that on a painting, so I'm going to have to make him slightly larger and just apply a little bit of artistic impression. And from the camera angles I'm using, you can really see the texture that's built up on the canvas, which I really like because it adds to the character of the painting. I have tried to get as many different camera angles in this video as I can for you to make it more interesting and to show you more detail. However, it doesn't always work. I get a little bit too close, the lighting isn't quite right. What I've decided to do in the next video and moving forward is film everything in landscape rather than portrait mode. I don't know what I was thinking with portrait mode. I know you can flip your phone or whatever round, your pad round. but it's a little bit irritating if you watch it on TV or any other device. So everything's going to be in landscape mode from now on. So back to the Jammy Dodger biscuits, and as you can see, I've actually have the Jammy Dodger in my left hand, so I'm painting with my right hand. I'm painting from life. I'm looking at the angle of the biscuit. I'm looking at the light on the biscuit. Because these biscuits really have to be true and identified and seen as a Jammy Dodger biscuit. So painting from life is tricky when you're trying to match it to photographic and film reference, but I need to first of all paint it as I see it, and then tone it down and match the colour tones to the painting. Also, because I've never seen a blue Jammy Dodger, apparently they did exist, I think they're blueberry. I'm more matching the blue of the Jammy Dodger biscuit to the pill in the actual film. As you can see, the Jammy Dodger biscuits are going to be a work in and of themselves, just like the glasses. So they're almost like little pieces in themselves. So they take time. They take a lot of judgment to get them looking roughly right. So it's worth spending just that little bit extra time to get these just right. And again, an essential part of the composition, because this is where the viewer's attention is going to be primarily on the biscuits and the glasses. And the whole reason I chose this subject to paint is that it's an important subject for me, and it should be really, I believe, for everybody. It's about choice. It's about left and right. It's about being awake or asleep. It's about making the right choices in your life. So it's very poignant, it's a very important fact of life. And we are essentially, all of us, a product of our own choices. And there never was a more important time than right now, in the 21st century and the year we're in, to make the right choices. So back to the hands and foreshortening. Foreshortening is one of the greatest challenges to any artist, really. I've done a lot of life drawing in my time, especially the early days of my training. And from life drawing, it's hard, but it's not as hard as doing this from average to poor reference like this in the film. It's very badly lit. I'm struggling with these, so I'm going to have to take a lot more time, as you can see, to get them right and be happy with them. Another truth I think about realistic painting, realistic art, is that you're only ever as good as your reference. So your painting's only ever going to be as good as your reference. If your reference is poor, your painting's going to show that. You can apply a certain amount of artistic license, but this is why I'm going to prefer to do my own photography with my own models and do the whole process from beginning to end. I'm not a Pinterest guy. I don't like taking from other people's photographic reference, no matter how good it is. I may do a little bit of it in the future, just mix and match my own with other people's work, other people's photography, but I prefer to stick to my original genuine photography, and then I have complete control over the end result. Okay, before I finish the hands completely, I want a little bit of a break because they intense concentration. Let's go back up to the ears. Let's attach these ears to Morpheus's head, get some highlights going. They really need to look like they're sitting back from the glasses and the nose, so always conscious of that distance. There's also some lovely highlights from the chair in the ears, the little tinges of red among the pink. There's some transparency, and I really want to capture that. I just mentioned intensity, and it is very, very intense work. There's an awful lot of concentration goes into putting so much detail, observing from your reference all the detail, and really transferring that honestly onto the canvas. This can be absolutely exhausting, especially at my age of 58. One thing I did consider, that I was coming back 30 years later, from in my 30s to my 50s. So just to wrap up this video this time, let's go over the jacket once more. I'll start to rework the jacket for the final time. Just starting to layer in some green and also add some of that gloss medium to really make the jacket shine. Big experiment this, so I really don't know how it's going to work out. And I'll be showing you that in the next and final video. So thank you for watching, really appreciate if you got this far. See you next time.